Two things I wanted to tell you before we go to Q&A is that these presentations and the biographical information on all of our speakers will be posted to the website, as well as a link to the video and photographs that are being taken. Aside from that, I wanted to tell you that Miss Veronica McNally wanted to be here in the worst way today and wasn't able to make it. She truly is an excellent spokesperson for the curbing vaccination waivers. So, okay, I'll open it up to your questions when they go here. I'll work my way around. I'm going to hold the mic for you.
It still seems like there's a big gap between the 75% immunization rate and the fact that there's only about a 4% waiver rate. And I suspect it's probably because we're measuring the vaccination rate if kids under 36 months, and the waiver rate we're looking at is kindergartners. What can we do to try to improve the vaccination rate for the pre-kindergartners who are not going to be covered by the school rules if they're not in our licensed daycare?
So I'm happy to take a stab at that. You know, there is a gap, I agree, and I think a lot of that has to do with the delayed vaccinations and those that are on alternative vaccine schedules and put off vaccines for a period of time. So I think we do a pretty good job about, that's why it's so important to have the school reporting, because it's a population-based reporting that we have, that we can then look and measure the vaccine rates for an entire population, or at least those enrolled in the school, and see where we're at. Did that answer your question, I think?
Well, no, I guess my question is more, you know, we're targeting the kindergartners by the rules, but yet 25% of our 3-year-olds are not immunized, which means we're, you know, well below that 95% you need to get good herd immunity in that age range. And what can we do to target improving that rate?
So the department does do a lot of things to try to improve the rates. We send out notices to parents based on our immunization registry that are behind, that are now overdue. Physician offices do that, local health departments do that, so the more reminders we can get out to parents that have just forgotten. It is a complex schedule. It's difficult to do, so the more we can remind parents about the need to vaccinate. We also have all kinds of educational modules that we do at provider offices. We have nurses that are trained. They go into the offices and talk about the value of vaccines and address the different issues on how to promote and increase immunization rates. We have a program called AFIX, which we go into provider offices and measure their level, and then talk to them and put together some ways that the provider can better implement immunization policies. But I will say a lot of this does fall on the healthcare provider, because the person, that a parent is going to listen to a healthcare provider more than anybody else on a medical decision. They might listen to grandma, they might listen to grandpa, but they will also listen to that healthcare provider. So it's important that they understand the value of immunizations and make that strong recommendation for immunization.
I think you're right, Dr. Pollock. We have data that shows by 7 months, which is a month after their 6-month visit, about half of our babies are not up to date. So that's very early. Almost half of our kids by 7 months are not up to date. And then by 24 months, if you add in 2 doses of hepatitis A, which they are recommended to have by 24 months, about 46% of our babies are not up to date, are up to date. So less than half of our babies by 24 months are up to date. So if you think about it, who are those kids seeing routinely? It's their pediatricians. So one of the things that when we talk to our immunization champions is to make their appointments routinely. Don't just say, call us in 2 months for your appointment. Make the appointment before they leave the office. Don't let them leave without a routine appointment. Some people are scheduling a year in advance. Here's your appointment every 2 months, regardless. Don't get out of the office because your schedule fills up, parents' schedule fills up. So some immunization champions are doing that. Some of them are sending a reminder before they're overdue to say your 2-month appointment is coming up, your 4-month appointment is coming up. Then if they're overdue and they come up for their appointment and they miss the appointment, the provider is actually calling saying, I had an appointment scheduled for Tommy today and you didn't show. I had time because you missed his appointment. I'm taking the time now to call and say it was important for him to be here today and he's not here. So there's things that providers can do to let parents know that that was a very important appointment today. He didn't make it in and we need to see him again. So I'm going to refer you now over to the receptionist to schedule that appointment, so you make sure you get in to get that appointment. So we're seeing babies fall off early with their schedule, and data shows if they fall off early, they stay behind. And so I think it's critical, as Bob said, that they hear from their practitioners that those appointments are important and we need to keep them on time.
Can I get one? I think there's a point worth making about public perceptions of the data. Right, so presenting it this way, that says half the kids have not completed the series, makes it seem like half of our fellow citizens are not vaccinating, and that's just not true. Right, so 1 to 2% are refusing in a committed way all vaccines, right? And we know that even getting one, you get one MMR, you still got greater than 90% chance of developing immunity. Right, after the 2, you get 95+% chance, right? So just as a matter of public perception of data, right, it's clear that we're not saying when you say only 50% have completed the series that these 50% don't have any immunity, right?
Right. Very good question. Helpful response. I have a question over here.
Okay. I agree. Mr. Swanson might be the best person to answer this. I was kind of wondering, you presented data on the rates of these vaccine waivers that had occurred before the 2014 rule and after. I was wondering if you had data on the rates of these vaccine preventable diseases that occurred during that same time period. Is there a correlation between the rates of vaccine waivers and the rates of these diseases?
You know, I think that's a really good question. We do have disease rates, but disease rates are you can't take an exact correlation this quickly. I think we have to see over time with large populations. Remember, we're only getting 2 cohorts of data with the waiver. We're getting the 7th grade, we're getting the kindergartner. So we need to impact the entire population to really see the rates of disease decrease. Although, I will say this, that we haven't seen but 1 case of measles so far in Michigan this year. We don't usually see more than 5 in a year most times, but this year we haven't seen any. And many of the diseases, believe it or not, are cyclic, where we may see cycles of disease in 3 to 5 years, something like that, when we do see them. So I think we need to work on the population broadly to really see the impact on disease.
Thank you very much. I'm with the Michigan chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics, and I want to thank all the panel members. Great presentations. I have a question about something that may be trending and whether any of the members of the panel have looked at it. We all saw the media a couple weeks back about a divorce case in which mom and dad had a different opinion about immunizing, and the mom agreed in court. She was the person opposed to immunizing. The mom agreed in court to immunize her children, and ultimately she didn't do that. So the judge called her back in court, and she saw a little bit of jail time. Over the course of the last probably month and a half, I've had 3 calls to my office of people who are going through divorces in which there's a similar circumstance. Mom and dad have different points of view about immunizations. And I'm getting requests to have my members come as expert witnesses in these divorce cases. I see some of my fellow colleagues here who work very hard on advocating for immunizations. Is this going to be a new arena we're going to have to start to take a look at advocating in? Has anybody looked at that?
I know that the old arena used to be the issue of smoking. Because one parent smoked, another parent didn't, and the rates of SIDS or asthma in Michigan and that type of thing. So again, this is a new era that has amped up because of this court case and the clarity that's needed in terms of, you know, as it was reported out, because I got calls from different students and I teach pediatrics, and I said, understand that there was a court order for the immunization and the mother violated the court order. That's different from just saying, I'm not immunizing. So again, it goes back to law, it goes back to ethics. It'll be multiple sides that will need to be involved in order to have a good discussion about this. But the real issue was the court order that she violated. And again, you don't violate a court order without expecting to have some type of repercussion. So once again, it used to be the issue of smoking and the father smoking or the mother smoking, and they're smoking outside, and we all said, well, when you come inside, your clothes are still smoking, and so you're attributing to ear infections and SIDS and, you know, asthma attacks. Same issue could go on here. As time goes on, we'd have to see what that looks like. But in fact, we get a lot of calls because we get this discussion a lot as well.
If I could just follow up on that Oakland County case, there are actually 3 cases in Oakland County based on the same exact thing. The custody cases with regard to the immunizations, but the second case, and I don't know how much publicity it's gotten right now, she has a very distinct opinion with regard to a religious waiver, not a philosophical. She'll get some, she won't get all, with regard to the production on aborted baby tissue. And I was wondering if anybody in here, this is a public policy, we're not talking about religion, we're not talking about medicine, but we're talking about it as a matter of public policy, what's being done to have ethically created vaccines? Because we know several of the vaccines are in fact grown on aborted baby tissue. And I know several people who have they have a problem with that. And so we are dealing with custody issues with regard to religious liberty as well as the medical side of it. And I know the goal here is to have everybody immunized, but at the same time we want to respect people's religious liberties and give them an ethical alternative. So what's being done from a public policy standpoint to bring in ethically produced vaccines?
I'm not sure if this panel is...
Yeah, I'm not sure I can really answer that because our policy doesn't create new vaccines. I think new vaccines are done by pharmaceutical companies. They create the vaccines and we could only encourage. I can say that that has been a discussion item that's been talked about a lot. These are, just so that there's an understanding, these are aborted fetus cell lines that were used to produce a couple of the vaccines. These cell lines have been active since, I believe it's the 70s. Maybe it's the 60s, I can't remember. Back many, many years, new babies are not aborted to create new vaccines. This is a cell line that was first started in the 60s, and it's continued to be used to culture vaccines, but it's not new babies that are being aborted to support vaccines.
Is that supposed to make it better?
I'm not saying it makes it better. I'm giving you the reasoning behind it. I'm not saying it's better, but it's an explanation to how they are rated.
So I might say something. I'm not a Catholic bioethicist, but from the Catholic bioethics literature that I've read, right, they characterize taking these vaccines as remote participation with evil of a sort that basically every activity in your daily life involves you in, right? So much, right, the land you're standing on, right? Perhaps at one point, I actually don't know Michigan history well enough, but some land in America stolen, right, from Native Americans, or at least treaties been broken, right? We're participating in evil remotely all the time. And the Catholic Church, as far as I understand, especially the National Catholic Bioethics Center, has called just for this, right, for the development of vaccines that don't derive from these cell lines, but also not just for moral permission for parents to receive these vaccines, but also moral responsibility if, as a consequence of not taking one of these vaccines, you infect someone else. And so the Church affirms the right of conscience, but also says that with that comes a responsibility for public health, but also calls for the development of these vaccines, of which I know nothing.
Excellent question. Again, another opportunity, another area that needs to be further explored. So thank you. Do you have a question?
As the mother of a severely vaccine-injured child and the mother of a extremely healthy, unvaccinated child, We've talked a lot about educating parents on the risks of not vaccinating, but where's the education or informed consent on the risks of getting a vaccine?
So every vaccine that's administered in Michigan, an individual is given a sheet that's required by federal government that we hand out something called a vaccine information statement that talks about any risks that may be associated with it. In fact, to assure that vaccine preventable diseases do not occur in Michigan. And so my job is then to promote immunizations, and I feel it's the right thing to do. I feel strongly about it. I'm passionate about it. And I strongly feel the value of vaccines. I strongly feel that vaccines are safe and effective, and that I will continue to promote vaccines. And we as Michigan want to do that so that we see more kids protected.
Thank you. Dr. Warren?
As a healthcare provider, it is our goal and our duty to maintain that standard of care. As a mother, I maintain that standard of care for my child. For my patients, again, we have electronic medical records, so that's why we're calling you to keep you informed. And when it comes to real talk, let's have real talk. As a parent or as a family member, it's called family-centered care. It's called patient-centered care. You have the final voice and the final decision. And yes, I've seen both sides of the coin by children being affected by the immunizations. And I've also seen those who didn't fare out very well, even when all the circumstances were in their favor. Everyone is different, and that's where medicine is also going, is looking at being more designers so that we understand the genetics of your life and of your family to help take better care of you. But the bottom line is that we need you, and we need you to be informed, and you need to have real talk. But you're the final decision maker for your family. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Nathan?
So it's clear that there are many parents here, and many of them are passionate about their right to refuse vaccines. And I suspect that at least some of the parents here who are passionate about the rights to refuse vaccines think that they shouldn't have to attend education sessions. And maybe have shown up at the Education Reform Committee, right, and given testimony for bills that would eliminate the education requirement. And I can understand that. I would suggest as a sympathetic comment that might not be the best long-term strategy politically. Because I suggest that if you succeed in eliminating the education requirements in Michigan, if the waiver rates spike and then go back to continuing to rise, you will see mobilized against you, not just the American Medical Association, the AAP, AACP, etc., but you also see other parents groups, right, who are more sympathetic to vaccination, mobilized to eliminate the waivers, as we saw in California. And as someone who cares about liberty and cares about people being able to live their lives with public health, but also making their own decisions, I think that would be a disaster. And I think we should be able to agree, I hope we can agree, that that's something we want to avoid.
I, too, am passionate about vaccines. I'm also passionate about children. And I have no more sympathy than I have for these families that are here. I am a mother, and I understand how passionate you are about your children and what has happened to them. I would give anything to give you the answers that you seek for why your children have been hurt and you feel like it's the cause of vaccines. I am just as passionate to feel that it is not the cause of vaccines, and I would love to find the answers for you so that we could move on and you could find the causes for whatever has caused it for you, and we could not blame vaccines for those causes. I would love to find that answer for you so that we could get more children protected with vaccines, more adolescents protected, and more adults protected. That would be my goal, that I would never have to see another child's death come across my desk due to flu, and that we would see my job eliminated because everyone would be protected with vaccines. That would be my goal.
Thank you very much. And please help me to thank our panelists, and thank you for asking your questions. Keep asking your questions. And hopefully we'll see you next month. Bye-bye.